Okay, so today I'm going to be showing you guys the mechanics of how a little watch like this works. So yeah, that's what my video is gonna be about. Okay, so most all watches work in about the same way. So the first thing that you want to know about is, where do the watches get their power? This right here is how most every watch that you'll ever see, every mechanical watch, will get its power. This is called the mainspring. So the mainspring is a little bowl like this with a little thing sticking up right here in the middle. And that thing has this little pin, it's not that big, coming off the side of it. And then it has this long strip of hard metal that is springy, and it just winds and it winds and it winds, and then that goes to another little peg that is stuck right on the outside like that. And therefore, if this pin right here in the center is on a pivot, this the spring will start to pull this way because it is coiled up so tight. So the gears along the edges, like this, will start to move in that direction. So now that you know how the mainspring works, the next thing is the gear train. Okay, so the gear train is usually made up to about 2 to 4 gears. And just to explain this a little further, how a conventional gear works is that you just do teeth right into teeth, right? But gears in watches are usually, they'll have a bunch of teeth like this, and they'll have exoskeleton, so it weighs less. And then on this pivot, if we were to take that and turn it sideways, we would see this. And then there's this part right here is another miniature tiny gear, that if you took this part and you flipped it this way, it'd look like that. So that's what a gear is in a watch. So in the gear train, it is usually the mainspring, right here, this little thing with the coil, will go right to the small part of a gear, like this. La la la. And that gear is usually right here in the center. There's usually always a pivot point for a gear right in the center. And that gear right in the center is the gear that will go up to your watch hands. So that gear goes right up to your watch hands. But so the problem is, oh yeah, we've got spinning motion here and the gear goes up to your watch hands. But what's to stop this gear right here from just spinning as fast as this thing wants? It has to have some regulator so it will keep time. And that is where we get the pallet and the balance wheel. So here I'm just going to take this apart to show you what they look like. That thing you can see right there is what we call the hairspring. And this is the balance wheel right here. Let's see if I can get a nice close-up of it. So this is the balance wheel, and as you can see, it's got little tiny screws all over it. And those little tiny screws are tightened and loosened to keep it perfectly balanced. So most pallets are about too small to really get a good shot with the camera of, so I'm just going to blow it up for you. So this is what a pallet usually looks like, magnified. So what the pallet does is your balance wheel has, if you saw, what we call the hairspring, which is kind of like a mini one of these. So what it does is, so here's your balance wheel with the little hairspring. It's got little screws right all over it. And that on the bottom of the pivot right here, if we were to take this and flip it this way, you would see a little thing coming off like this. And if we were to take that and we were to flip it 1 degree again, so it was looking on the top, you'd see this with a little tiny jut coming out of it. That little thing right there. And that right there is what makes the whole thing happen. So what's happening is through a chain of torque down from, see, here's our mainspring, and then we usually have a gear, and this is exaggerated, but another gear, and eventually it goes to this weird type of gear that it's kind of got like these little weird spikes on them, and they notch in, so when one of those things hits right here, it can't move into the next spot until this thing swings this way, and then it gets stopped by that next one on this pin, and then once it swings this way, it can let it go again. And the hairspring is tensioned properly so that it is always pulling one direction, and so it is kind of like a push-pull system. So this little notch right here would stick in right here, and then you'd have your balance wheel right along outside there. So everything wants this balance wheel to turn this way, so the balance wheel is turning this way in direction, which in turn, if this is the pivot point, is going to make this thing bend that way, which is going to let one of the cogs spin, and then in turn go all the way back up to your middle one, and that will spin your hand. So it's just a balance between this wants to go to the next one, so it pushes it this way, which in turn pushes that over, so the balance wheel goes like this, rotates this way then, and then after that it just keeps on going tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, back and forth. So here is a close-up shot of that tick-tock. So as you can see, this thing right here is going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth very quickly. And so this mainspring right here, underneath that gear is the mainspring, is the, magnetized. The mainspring is going back and forth, back and forth. The mainspring is always turning this way. This, on the other hand, always wants to turn this way. And through the gear system, there's the main gear in the middle that spins your hands. It goes through a couple more gears, up to here, up to that gear with all the weird little cogs on it, and then to the pallet, which is from the pressure of this always wanting to be that way, the pallet always wants to go back to this side, but the pressure of the mainspring always brings it back to the other side, and it brings it back, and it's back and forth. So it's like tug of war that never really ends. Here is another example. They're quite beautiful. They're usually made by the Swiss. There's some American ones, but most of the beautiful ones are Swiss. And those pink things you see are just the pivots, and they're usually made out of ruby, so that's why you can see the kind of pinkish red color there. Here's another quite beautiful one. This one is made out of sterling silver, I'm pretty sure. And as you can see, there's that little wheel right there that it has the weird teeth on it that is going back and forth, and you can almost see the pallet right there at the tip of my finger going back and forth. Right inside of there you can see the wheel moving, so it's just a tug-pull action. Thanks for watching. I hope now you know how a watch works.